I've meditated for many, many, many years, 16 years, almost every single day of my life. And then one day it came to me. I have to write a book.
How do you build a network, run a profitable business, and make an impact? Oh, and have a personal life at the same time? That's the question, and this podcast is the answer. I'm your host, Chaz Wilson, husband, father of 5, author of the book 5+1, president and co-founder of Master Networks Inc., a national networking organization. Look, each week I bring you successful entrepreneurs who will share success strategies of how to effectively build a network, add valuable wisdom to your journey, and help you succeed. Welcome to Connect, Share, and Prosper. Hey everybody, welcome to Connect, Share, Prosper. I'm so excited today. You guys are going to have a blast listening to this episode for sure. My guest today is married, father of 2. He's the CEO and founder of Client Solution Innovations, lives in Columbus, Ohio. He's the author of Walls of Wisdom, Turning Pain into Profit, which we're going to talk about. He's been featured on many podcasts. He's been featured in the Huffington Post. He's the host of his own podcast called Breakthrough Walls. He's interviewed people like Grant Cardone, Jeffrey Gitomer, myself. I happen to be a guest at one point on that show. Super honored to do that. Please welcome to our show, Ken Walls, to Connect, Share, Prosper. Welcome, Ken.
Chaz, thanks for having me, bro. I appreciate it.
Man, so I've been looking forward to this podcast as soon as we got it scheduled. Partially because I love the story of networking and how we connected. So I'm going to just share this and maybe you remember, maybe you don't, but Ken worked for a company years ago and we actually had a sales call. You called me one time to do business and we had several calls. I don't know, maybe a year and a half goes by, no conversation. I had passed at that time on the product. And then a member of Master Networks comes to me and says, "Hey, I got somebody you need to talk to." And says, "You got to talk to Ken Walls." Ken, you and I get on the phone and I literally say, like, "I feel like I've talked to you before. Your voice sounds familiar. Story sounds familiar." You had moved back across the country.
Yeah.
From, I think, Las Vegas to Dayton, Ohio. And I type your name in my Gmail account and it says Ken Walls. And I'm like, dude, we talked a year ago. What a small world.
Is that crazy? I mean, it really is. Cause it was one of your members that we're both mutual friends with.
Crazy. Totally
blew me away. Yeah.
So listen, and one thing I want to say, you guys listening to this, that's the power of a network. Okay. Yeah. And why you always, are out talking to people, making connections. And so one of the things that I honor about you, Ken, is you are always so good to lead with what people need. You are always putting people together, making connections. You did that for me. You've done that for many other people. So super honored to have you on my show. And hopefully I can connect you now to my audience because you do such a great job, amazing things. I want to start with the author of Walls of Wisdom, Turning Pain into Profit. Give us an idea of what that means. Why'd you write that and what that's about, how people can find it?
Well, first off, thank you for the incredible accolades like that. That's amazing. I was the guy that, as Zig Ziglar says, he used to say, I was the guy that made the bottom half of the class possible. So I was, I was the one that was always told that hey, you're never going to amount to anything. So to be on your podcast and hear such amazing things, it's mind blowing to me. So thank you for that. But the book actually, I've spent, and I don't know how deep you want me to go, but I'm just going to talk about it. I have over 17 years sober. And I grew up in a crazy house. Won't go into all that, but it was a crazy environment. So I didn't have much I didn't have much direction as a kid, right? Yeah. So I ended up in a lot of trouble as a kid, a lot. Like the principal of my school and I became very close.
You had a permanent seat in his office.
Pretty much, yeah. My nameplate was printed and everything, but
Assistant Principal Ken Walls.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, my seat was in his office. Yeah. But so I did. I had a very tumultuous life for a long time. When I was 34 years old, I had drank away millions of dollars in a company that I had started in my 20s, and long story short, I saw the light. Something happened, and I'll call it God said, "Hey, dude, you've had enough," and that's when I literally like went from. I mean, dude, I was a baller. I had the big house, 2 Mercedes, the business. I had it all, man. And I drank all that away and became homeless. And so I, when I sobered up, I was like, man, I don't know. I don't know my rear end from a hole in the ground. I was terrified of my own shadow. I had no self-confidence at all. And I just didn't know how to live. And so I went through I got a lot of help, man, along the way. And at about 47, 48 years old, I think it's 48 is how old I was when I wrote the book. And it's a little book. It's not a big, it's only 74 pages. But I like short books. I don't like to read 400 pages. Like, I literally was just talking to somebody about this today, a client of mine. And I'm like,
I don't have the attention span.
Yeah. And we've all read books where it's like, oh my gosh, they're pontificating now. Like, let it go, dude. I got the point. Move on. Like, right.
Yep. I get it. I love books where I can get the point in the first 10 pages.
Yeah.
There's many books I've only read the first 10 to 20 pages.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I still highly value the book, and I love the point that was made, but I could get it out of the first 10 or 20 pages.
I totally am with you, man. So, when I wrote my book, I was like, this has been 25. I used to be a national sales trainer in the home security industry. So, I've had many, many people say, you need to write a book, man. You need to write a book. And so 25 years, I'm like, thinking about writing a book. And at 48 years old, man, I don't know. I've meditated for many, many, many years, 16 years, almost every single day of my life. And then one day it came to me. I have to write a book. And I remember we have a mutual friend, Grant Cardone, right?
Yep.
And I remember him talking about in his book that he wrote Sell or Be Sold, his first book, in 3 hours or something crazy.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, look, I'm not on his level yet. So if he can write a book in 3 hours, I can do it in 7 days. Yes. So I literally gave myself 1 week to write the book and have it finished and ready to go. And it took about 10 days total before my wife edited the book for me, and it was ready, man. Yeah.
What do you say to those people right now? Because I think there's a lot of people listening to this who have a book inside of them. They have a story that, well, who's going to want to hear it, right? Did those thoughts ever go through your head? And then what would you say to somebody who's got the same kind of conversation going on?
Dude, that's the only thought that was going through my head. Like, I couldn't think of it. Like, why am I writing this book? I'm wasting my time. I'm wasting people's lives. I was just, that's all I could think about is like, I'm like, what am I doing? And so
somebody's going to judge this when they read it. They're going to, right.
Yeah, I'm going to get negative reviews on Amazon and everybody's going to think I'm a fraud. Right. I mean, all of that stuff, man. That's the thing. And I talk about some of this stuff in the book, but here's what I finally resolved myself to was just, I'm not writing this for anybody else.
That's it.
Right. I finally came to the conclusion, whatever the word is, that like this, I don't care if one single person ever buys a copy of one book. Does not matter to me. Doesn't matter. And it really, truly didn't. And as you know, and I know, like the person who becomes completely indifferent, the one that becomes completely indifferent, man, they're the most lethal. Those are the ones you want to be afraid of, because they just don't care. And I got to that point where it's like, I really truly don't care if anybody buys this book, because I know this, it's a very, very small percentage of the world that actually does it, that writes the book. Everybody should write a book. I think everybody.
Yes. The interesting thing is too, when I wrote my first book, 5+1, I really wrote it for my Master Networks members and my team and all that. And, now we've sold thousands and thousands and thousands of copies of it.
Wow.
And then the second book I wrote, Now Make Good, I wrote that really for me to have the legacy, and for my kids, that was the message. Like, I thought, if I want them to know one thing, I want them to know what's in this book.
Yeah.
And so I wrote that book for them, and yet that's gone on to sell thousands of copies, and people, writing me notes going, hey, this changed my life, or my son is going to the military and he read this and it changed his life, or, whatever, my daughter read this and she had self-esteem issues in it. So, I'm sure, guys, first of all, can they get your book on Amazon?
Yeah, on Amazon, or Amazon's a bit. I mean, it's on my website. I think I should know that since I built the website, but I'm pretty sure it is. Like, it's, I have a lot of people that want a signed copy, just like you. It's a little bit more to have me ship it out with it, but I do that. So
Yeah, so I love it. You know how many authors like myself is like, people go, well, where can I get your book? I'm like, I think my site, Amazon, because the interesting thing is, you don't write the book, like you said, you don't write it to make money on the book. You write it for the story and the legacy that's there, and to help other people. So, by the way, I love that. Congrats on the 17 years sober as
Thanks.
well. I think
I appreciate that.
we have some people that I know of in our circle who have recently been sober, and it's a daily thing. And I think to look at people like you and what you've accomplished is pretty cool.
Dude, it's a gift. And I know people currently in my life that I can see it. I know that there's a problem, and I'm like, I used to swim in a river called denial, man. It's not a river in Egypt, but
right?
I see it, and I'm like, man, I've been there. You're just lying to yourself. And
Yeah.
I feel blessed, man. I just feel blessed.
Yeah, well, good for you. So, you've done something that I think is fascinating, and you've built this massive network of high connections, high level producers that you're connected with, that you have a first name friendship with, and you can pick up the phone and call them anytime. I mean, you and I, that's what I love, is you and I have known each other now pretty well for, I don't know, almost 2 years, maybe now, year and a half, something like that. Well, prior to the first sales call, of course, but
outside of you not buying from me.
Well, listen, man,
it worked out.
Yeah. Listen, we've done business together since.
We have done a lot. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So the thing that I really value, and I think that you could bring to this audience, is first of all, how have you made those connections? How do you continue? You must have some system or some intentionality to your networking and the connections you're building. And so how do you do that? And what advice would you give to people listening who need to expand their network?
Okay, so I'm actually in the middle of writing 2 more books.
Oh, good for you.
Believe it, dude. Like, at the same time too, which is really difficult. I don't recommend that.
No.
Focus on one thing. But like, and I just made that decision today that, like, okay, I got to focus on this one thing. The power of the network. I'm stuttering, but like, so Zig Ziglar's children are friends of mine. They're right there in Dallas, Texas. Julie
Correct.
Ziegler is a dear friend of mine, good client of mine. I built her website. She's amazing. But I learned from Zig, like everybody else. Like, we're taught by Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy, all these, the masters. And, it was 5 or 6 years ago when I heard about Grant Cardone, and I looked him up, and long story short, and fast forward a couple of years after I learned who he was, or maybe a year, I was sitting in his office at his desk eating lunch with him, and spent 3 hours with him. And that day literally changed my life, because here I am, the guy's worth $300 million now. Back then he was only worth 150. Yes, I said
that's because he met you. Now he's worth 300 million, right?
Right. There's actually a video floating around of him saying that he wouldn't be where he is if it weren't for Ken Walls.
Well, that's what I'm saying, man. Just call it what it is.
I'm like, dude, I'm glad you said that. I'm going to use that in my marketing. But I literally.
But how did you get to his desk? How did you get to his desk? That's the question.
Okay. So I saw this guy, and he was massively crazy and huge, and just, I saw him expanding rapidly, and I decided, you know what, man, I'm going to help this guy. And he's got tens of millions of dollars more than I have, but I can help him. And and that's the thing that I think people don't get, man. I have people that call me the plug. Like I plug people into each other, right? I'm the connector, and it is what people call me. And so I just said, I'm going to help this guy, man. I'm going to promote the crap out of this dude. So for about 2 years straight, I was his number one promoter in the world. He would do these what do you call them? Webinars, and they were paid webinars. And at one webinar was the 10X Super Life or something. Like I bought somebody a ticket. I was doing a live stream on Periscope, and somebody said, "Oh, I wish I could be there at that." And I'm like, "You can be." And they're like, "No, I don't have the $50 or whatever." And I'm like, "You know what? I'll buy your ticket." So I bought him a ticket on my live stream. I committed to that.
Wow.
Then dude, I emailed Grant's people and I'm like, "Hey, I've just bought a ticket for this person. How do I get you the money?" I sent them the money. They emailed the person their ticket. And I was like, "Man, that was cool. I'm going to do that again." So I did it the next day. And then I did it the next day and the next day and the next day. And I'm promoting the crap out of Grant on these Periscopes. Well, about the 6th or 7th time I did it because I literally got addicted to it. I do have an addictive personality. So I started just promoting Grant, and so Grant pops in on one of my streams, and all I'm doing is I'm asking a question out of his book. Like, if you can answer this, and you tweet and you go to Twitter and tweet me and Grant, the person with the right answer that tags both of us, you win a ticket.
So good.
Oh, thousands and thousands and thousands of tweets are hitting my account and Grant's simultaneously. I'm getting his attention. He didn't know. He didn't know I even existed, and I was paying him a ton of money for Cardone University. He still didn't know I existed.
So good, right?
So I'm like, I'm getting this guy's attention, and the way I'm going to get his attention is I'm going to let him know that it's like Zig said, or whoever said it. People don't want to hear, or how's it go? I can't even say it.
They don't want to know how much you know until they know how much you care. Is that the one you're talking about?
Okay. That's it. Yes. Thank you. And so here I am, and Grant shows up. I think it was the 6th or 7th stream. And he's like, wait a minute. Don't ask the question yet. Let me share this out. So he shares it out, dude. And literally within 3 seconds, I went from having 50 or 60 people on that stream to like 900, over 1,000. And they're just like, I'm watching it on Periscope. I start sweating. I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, I just got like thousands of people on here. Okay. And then it was like, I just did my first round of heroin, man. I was like, I'm in, I'm addicted now.
Yeah.
So dude, I just kept doing it every day. I'm giving away a free seat to the webinar. You guys got to be on here. I ended up doing 14 seats to that webinar that I bought for other people. $700.
$700, right? There you go.
Let me tell everybody listening right now that was the best $700 investment I've ever made in my entire life in any business I've ever had, and I've invested millions.
So was it because of that he then said, "Hey, come down, let's talk"? Or
at the end of that webinar, they said, "All right, one lucky winner." And I have this clip too, this video. One lucky winner is going to win a trip with Mr. Cardone on 10X Airlines on his private jet.
Yep.
And they called my name. And dude, I was watching it. I was not expecting that.
So where'd you fly?
Nowhere. They called me the next day and said, "Hey," and this is again another level up that people need to understand. If a long time ago, I heard Brian Tracy say, if you want to become a millionaire, take a millionaire out to lunch, take a millionaire out to dinner, try to get a millionaire to go to lunch and tell them it's on you. You'll buy it. Right. So they called to have Grant fly to Columbus, pick me up. I don't know where we were going to go, somewhere. And I said, I appreciate that, but I could probably save you about 30 grand in jet fuel. And, I'll just fly to Miami. I'd love to just sit with Grant one-on-one and spend a couple of hours just brainstorming, picking his brain, getting some business knowledge from him. That's far more value. I've been on private jets. That's far more valuable than being on a private jet. And no offense, I love 10X Airlines. And if Grant and I are ever buddies and want, I'll fly anywhere with him. But so his COO was like, oh my gosh, that's awesome. I said, I'll pay for my own ticket. I'll just come down. So I did that. I did it. And it changed my life. It literally changed my life.
So I want everyone to listen. There's a couple key things you said, and you actually demonstrated something I teach all the time. Number one, you got his attention. And you got the attention because you actually did both of the things I teach. And I've heard other people talk about this as well in other ways, but it's like you bought your way in and you earned your way in. So number one, you bought your way, you put money in, you got into the circles, you got into the webinar, you bought tickets for other people. So you paid money, you bought your way in. Then you earned your way in by promoting the webinar, showing up. And then you even did it again by buying your way to fly there, and you've earned it because of the things you were doing. Yep. And I think people underestimate the power of buying your way and earning. So I'll just give you another example. I just got off the phone with somebody today who I've been intentional about connecting with. It took, I think we're at month 3 of my attempts 3 months of attempting to try to get a phone call with this gentleman. Yeah. I've earned my way in. I haven't quite bought my way in yet, but I earned my right there, got on the phone with him. Of course, as a good salesperson does, he sold me one of his products. He said, look, I'm doing an event. Why don't you come out to it? It's $5,000. Boom, I'm in. I'll pay the $5,000. I'll go now I've paid and earned my way into that circle. And people overlook that. They're not willing to do it.
Why do you think I've actually thought a lot about that, man, because this is all part of the book that I'm writing, one of the books I'm writing. And I think the reason is the same reason that, I had Andy Frisella on my show, the
Such
CEO.
A great episode, by the way.
Oh, it was phenomenal. And it changed my life. And I'll tell you how. He started this 75 hard challenge, right? Okay. And it's a free thing. You work out twice a day, 45 minutes each, blah, blah, all these things. If you want to know more about it, Google it. It's everywhere.
Right.
So I have a lot of friends that were already doing 75 hard or had already completed it. And I'm getting phone calls from buddies, text messages. Oh, this is firing me up, dude. I'm never going to be the same. And I'm like, yeah. Okay, cool. Whatever. I'll do it someday. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here eating potato chips, getting turned into this fat slob. And I'm like, I'm going to die. Like eventually, if I keep at this pace, like I sit in this chair in my office working all day and I'm not exercising. So Andy, I brought it up at the end of the episode. I said, I didn't even bring up 75 hard. You know why? And he said, yeah, because now you have to do it. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine. And I committed. Yep, dude, I'm down like almost 25 pounds in 53 days. I'm like, I feel like I could run through a brick wall most of the time.
So you literally mean because you've done this, your confidence is higher, your energy is higher, all of that stuff, right?
Way higher.
So maybe you can account for this and maybe you can't, but it's an interesting thought is now that you've done that from the physical side, right? Yeah. How has that translated to are more people attracted to what you're doing? Is it turning into more business? How's that affecting the business side by taking care of yourself physically?
Look, I don't care who you are. If you're an entrepreneur, I really think there's something mentally wrong with most entrepreneurs. I think most of us we're a little bit off, just a little. That's why we get along so well.
and we like it.
We love it, right?
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But look, it's like when I went into to recovery from alcoholism, man. I heard somebody say we're all a bunch of egomaniacs with an inferiority complex. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs have that, like this inferiority complex that nobody really realizes they have. Like Grant Cardone talks about it. He's like, I wake up scared every day, and dude's flying around on a $50 million jet. And he wakes up scared every day, right? So it's like when I do, and I'm not at the end of 75 hard yet. I'm 53 days in, but it's 75 days long. But doing this has helped me realize, number one, God, there's so much more confidence available if you're doing the right thing, right?
Yes.
And that's number one. And number two, like, when you have that confidence, you're naturally going to get more business. It's just going to happen, especially since I live stream 4 or 5 times a day on Facebook and Instagram. I'm doing, I'm naturally getting more business. I mean, I've closed some of the biggest deals I've ever closed in the last 30 days. And I attribute it to my energy is through the freaking roof, man.
Well, listen, man, I've been watching it and it's interesting to see. I mean, you work with some high level people already. There's people, we could drop names. We're not going to, but people would know listening, like they'd know some of your clients. They know who the people you're working with and who you connect with. What I think is fascinating is watching them root you on, watching those people go, and keep going, Ken. Like there's this, I think what people forget is that, success breeds more success, right? It attracts people as you have that high energy. It doesn't mean you fake it. No, but you are genuinely out there doing this stuff. And so you've made some changes to push that along. You mentioned something here that I just want to talk about. You do go live 4 or 5 times a day. Now we've had sort of a streak of some great people. We've had Brian and Kat Sullivan on my show. I've had Hank Norman on my show recently. Hank was last week. So
I love Hank.
Yeah, he does a phenomenal job. He really, I had a lot of great feedback from him. But give me one piece of advice in the social media realm, because that's where you've done a lot of networking, a lot of connections. What would you tell the listener here who's a local service provider? How could they use the social media game? I call it a game because I think it is. I think it's fun. I think you play the game. How do you play that game to grow your attention like you talked about you did?
You provide value. Number one, you have to deliver value. And if you haven't read, I think Sell or Be Sold, the 10X rule, whatever, by Cardone. I'm not turning this into there's people that hate Grant Cardone. I get it. He's a mouthful for sure. But I mean,
there's people that hate me.
What's that?
I mean, it's hard to believe, but there's people that hate me too. So
that's crazy, man.
I know.
Yeah, I've got haters. We all do. I mean, if you don't have people that hate you, you're flying way under the radar, and you need to stop that if you're going to.
But that's why. But see, that's the thing. That's why people don't want to write the book. That's why people don't want to get on social media, because they're afraid of that piece of when someone's going to hate on them. And that's what Hank Norman said. Hank Norman said that about Grant. He said one of his greatest successes was sitting on Grant's couch and saying, you need to get transparent about your story, about being hooked on drugs, about your dad dying, about all this stuff. And you tell that story. And then he went all in on that.
Yep. And that's what I've done. And Hank's a very, very good friend of mine too. And I think that I get it. Number one. So please I don't want anybody listening to think I'm judging, because I'm not. Trust me. I've lived in that fear, and it held me down. Like I developed websites, man, for years and years and years. And I was here in Columbus, Ohio, and I owned this market, and I was like, I'm good. I'm a baller right here in Columbus. Like we're the Silicon Valley of the Midwest. I don't need anything else. Right. And then I run into this Grant Cardone character, and he's like, bro, what are you hiding from? And I'm like, what do you mean? What am I hiding from? He's like, well, you don't even have a fan page. I'm like, I build websites, bro. Why do I need a fan page? And he goes, I buy real estate, bro. Why do I need one? I'm like, all right. So, he literally said, look, you can manufacture your own celebrity. You don't have to, you've got to get transparent. You have to get the word. I just had some woman in Malaysia this morning hitting me up asking me why I was trying to scam her. And that's one of those fake accounts. And I get 20 a day from Facebook saying, because whatever reason, I'm out there so much. So what I would say is, look, accept the fear. Just know that it's there, and you're not alone. Chaz feels it. I feel it. I've been live thousands of times, and I was nervous before getting on the podcast. And you and I are buddies. You're a client of mine. I mean,
I still get nervous. I'm like, what if I can't think of something? So I did my episode with Hank Norman. I got done, and people are walking through the office, and I'm getting text messages like, "Dude, so good." And I'm thinking, I didn't ask any good questions on that episode. Right. It didn't feel good to me. And so I'm judging myself and all that. So I think, that's just anybody who's out there.
And
I just
that's the thing though, dude, is people, that's why they have this fear. It's like if you ask people, hey, do you talk to yourself? People say, yeah, no. Come on, man. Yes, you do. We all have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day on average. That means you're talking to yourself a lot. And
all the
so
time.
like, stop being in denial about it. Say, yeah, I'm afraid to go live. I'm scared. Dude, people pay me thousands of dollars, thousands a month to coach them, right? To teach them how to go live on Facebook, how to hold an audience, how to build your audience, how to deliver value and get, and they won't hit that dang go live button, man. They will not. And after paying me a lot of money, they won't do it. It blows my mind.
Still can't do it. Ken, this is a good dude, you guys. We are on Connect, Share, Prosper with Ken Walls. You're listening to him today. Remember, every Monday I bring you top entrepreneurs, leaders like this. So make sure you plug in, go to the different channels, hit subscribe. But how can they follow you, Ken? How can people, you guys need to connect with this guy. He's good guy right here.
Well, I appreciate that. KenWalls.com. That's my website. You can download my digital business card right from there. And it's got my cell phone number and everything. I mean, hit me up. There's
hit him up on social media so you can watch those Facebook Lives he's talking about. He does several times a day. Really good guys. Okay, so I want to wrap with this question. So in business, when has been the most, like the moment you've been the most proud of what you've accomplished? And I know you're a really humble guy, and I know this is a hard question sometimes for people, but like, this is the time to pound the chest. I'm giving you the ability to do that. When's the moment you're like, man, I did that, or I made this happen, or I did something? When was that? What was it?
Honestly, and you'll be able to relate to this, man, a bunch of things just went through my head because I've developed friendships and relationships with massive celebrities that are good friends of mine. But you know what? The most proud moment of my entire life, besides the birth of both of my daughters, was the moment I was holding my book in my hands and I opened it and I read the first few words and I teared up and I was like, man, I cannot believe I'm holding my book in my hands. And like, it literally, it was an emotional experience. And I was like, all of the thousands of books that I've read and studied, I'm reading my book. This is mine. These are my words on that paper. Wow. That was it.
So relate to that. You gave birth. It was another birth. You gave birth to this book, this idea, from the creation in your mind to the creation in the physical. I totally get it. I relate to that. And actually for me, it wasn't so much the holding of my book and reading it. It was the first time I saw somebody posting a picture. They were posting a picture and someone in the background was reading my book. And I went, oh my gosh.
That's insane.
Right? So
yeah.
Super proud of you. Guys, listening to Connect, Share, Prosper, we didn't even have near enough time to really dive deep with Ken. We'll have him back for another episode, another point. But this is a guy, what I wanted to do is I wanted my audience to know you and have you introduced to them, because from a network, this is what I'd really like you guys to do. You need to follow Ken. Go to his YouTube, go to Facebook, whatever. Go to Facebook for sure. Yeah. Follow him, because here's the thing. This guy is a master networker. We talk about master networks. This guy is the epitome of it. He is doing this at a high level. And what I heard today was, look, when you do the right things and you provide value to people, your confidence goes up and that attracts people to your business. And I can't think of anyone who's doing that at a better, higher level than Ken. And so I wanted you guys to see this. I want you to hear it, see him in the flesh, if you will, and totally understand what he's about. Ken, thank you so much for being part of Connect, Share, Prosper today.
Chaz, thank you, man. I appreciate you. This has been fun.
Yeah, man. So guys, every Monday, noon Central, hit up our Master Networks Facebook page. We're going to bring live to you a guest every single week who will provide value based on their story, their experiences, and the things that you might be going through right now. And listen, we wish you well. If you want to learn how to join a Master Networks chapter, please go to masternetworks.com, hit start a chapter or find a chapter, and any one of my amazing staff will be able to help you find a chapter or start a chapter in your local area. All right, everyone, be well. Till next time, connect, share, and prosper.